everybody, and welcome to the second episode of a show I'm going to be calling Explain It Like I'm Six Strings. A show where I'm going to operate on the assumption that you have no prior knowledge of anything music related prior to this series and try to teach you guitar with that in mind. Last episode I taught you the 12 basic notes of music, starting with the letters A through G and adding in all the sharps, and a thing called standard tuning, the Eddie A Dynamite bit by Eddie of the guitar. Today, we're going to take one more slow step before really getting into everything, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm doing with my right hand, and I mean that in the cleanest way possible. What the right hand is when it comes to guitar, that's your picking hand or your strumming hand. I personally almost never use a pick, so I do what more is considered fingerstyle guitar, where you use 3 or 4 fingers for your melody, and your thumb normally handles the bass notes. So I'm going to explain that, and I'm also going to explain how to hold a pick properly so that you can do stuff like I did for this intro. Right? So I'm going to zoom in real quick, and I'm going to get more intricate about what's going on over here. Okay, so let's start with the simpler one. We're going to go straight into how to hold a pick. So first off, when you hold a pick, your index finger and your thumb are normally parallel to each other like this, with your thumb facing this way and your index finger facing this way. What you're going to do is, you're going to take your index finger and then you're going to take the pick and you're going to place it perpendicular to how your index finger is. So if the nail of the finger is facing this way, you want the pick facing this way, okay? And then you're going to place your thumb, again, parallel to your index finger like this and get a nice grip on it. You don't want too tight of a grip, because if you do, your note's going to come out like this. A little too much twang, and if you don't have it tight enough, you're gonna get drag, right? And when you really start rocking out, pick might fall out of your hand, and that's no good. What you're gonna want to do is hold it like I taught you, and you're gonna want to find a nice middle ground that feels comfortable for you. Not too hard. Maybe just keep doing this and then loosen up until you get a sound that you can live with. Essentially, what I use is kind of like a loose tooth ideal. You want to think of like you have a loose tooth. It's not falling out yet, but it's like the first day when you go and you're kind of just playing with it with your tongue, and it's like, oh hey, this might be loose, right? So essentially, assume this is the string. You're gonna want to do it like this, where it's gonna have some give, but with enough pressure, it'll flick right past without falling out of your hand. Okay? When you have that down, you're gonna be able to move on to learning how to strum all 6 strings. Now, you can do so with your wrist, or you can do so with your elbow. It is more recommended that you do so with your elbow because it's a larger joint and it won't wear out as easily over time. So, you can do this, you can do your wrist, or you can do a mixture of the two. I normally use my wrist because that's my business. And once you learn how to do that, you can start learning how to strum. When you strum, you're either gonna, it depends on the song you're playing, you're either gonna wanna get all 6 strings, or you're gonna wanna get maybe just the middle ones, or maybe just bass heavy for when you're playing like punk rock songs and everything. You're gonna wanna be able to not only be able to hit all 6 strings, but be able to manipulate and really understand what strings that you're hitting. So I know this doesn't sound the best right now, it's only one note, but you really wanna get down your picking pattern. You wanna get down a downstroke. And the opposite of that, when you start from the bottom and you're coming back up, an upstroke. So when you see downstrokes and upstrokes and you're just getting out learning, that's normally depicted using the letter D for down and U for up. So when you have different picking patterns like down, up, down, up, down, up, you understand that it'll be depicted with D, U, D, U, D, U. So what that translates to is down, up, down. So if I play a chord progression real quick, this is what it would sound like using that picking pattern. Alright, so we're going to be done with the pick for now, and we're going to move on to how I normally play. Like I said, I don't normally use a pick. I play essentially doing the same thing, but with the fat part of my thumb instead. Now this might hurt at first, but over time you'll gain calluses and it'll get easier. So what I do is I place my other fingers on the body of the guitar for support and to have like a bass, and you just strum down and strum up and strum up. Now if you're gonna learn this way, you're gonna wanna ensure that you don't have too much of your nail hitting you, because not only does it feel weird, you're also gonna get that rubbing sound from the nail hitting the metal of the string. And it's just not gonna sound good. It has a similar to a nails on a chalkboard type sound, and that's just no good for guitar. So if I played a similar thing, similar chord progression, using a similar picking pattern with my thumb, it'll sound like. Alright, now the last pattern I'm gonna show you is fingerstyle. Now I'm not a fingerstyle expert by any means of the word, but this is how I play when I'm using fingerstyle for songs and everything. What I do is I place my hand on the strings. Each string should be held by a different finger. So your index finger will take on the D string, your middle finger, the G string, and your ring finger, the B string. What you can do for the high E string is you can either go back and forth with the ring finger, or sometimes if you have enough control over your pinky, you can use that for the high E string. And your thumb will be taking the bass, normally the A, the low E, and sometimes the D. Okay? So how does this picking pattern work? You can either, I'm gonna play a C chord. I'll explain what that is in another video. But I'm gonna play a C chord real quick, and essentially I can pluck all 4 of the strings that I have at the same time, and it'll ring out like that. Or I can do different picking patterns with the 4 fingers. I can do what I did there was I took the index finger, the middle finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, and then the index finger with the thumb as the bass. So I started with the thumb and the ring finger at the same time, then middle finger, and then index finger. You can do that. You can also do, how do I say this? Thumb, ring, index, middle. Thumb, ring, index, middle. The key is just having fun with it, figuring out your own patterns and everything. I know some of these have different names. I'm not familiar with them off the top of my head, and I don't want to get too in depth with it because I'm probably going to be coming back to this in a later video. I just want you to have a better idea of what I'm doing with my hand exactly before we get into anything else. So because the picking pattern ideas took a little longer to convey than I originally thought they were going to take, I'm only going to go over a simple identifying notes on the low E string for today. Okay? So we're going to go back to what I taught in the first video, where I talked about the 12 basic notes of music, and I showed you how to identify them on a piano. Now we're going to go into how to identify them on the guitar. Like I said before, if you go to the low E string, it starts out with an E. If we go a half step up, a half step is one of these frets, real quick. A fret is these boxes you see the space in between them. They have dots on them, fret markers, on the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and the 12th. Right? And then 12th, 15th, and 17th. Okay? What we're gonna do is, you're gonna start with the E. If you go up a half step, remember what we said when we looked at the piano, there's no black key between the E and the F. So a half step up from an E would immediately be an F. Go up one more half step, F sharp, and then your first marker on the 3rd fret is a G. And then so on and so far from G to G sharp, to A sharp, to B. Again, we're here again where there's no black key. So from B, you go to C, C to C sharp, to D to D sharp, and then back after you've hit 12 notes to E. Reiterating what I said in the last video, from here to here, it's known as an octave. You can go from an octave by having all 12 semitones filled in between the two. So right? And the same can be done for any of these strings. Same rules apply. So if I go on the A string, it'll go from A to A sharp to B to C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E to F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and then back to A. From the open string to the 12th will be an octave for every one of these strings. So that's all the time I have for today. Don't forget what we went over. We went over how to identify the 12 notes on the low E string, and how to, what a fret means, how a fret is going a half step up and allows you to go through those 12 notes, and how an octave will always be 12 notes apart regardless of where you are on the body of the guitar. Let me just reiterate that real quick. So if I have the open E string and I go up to the 12th fret, that's an octave for the note E. Similarly, if I go up to the 3rd fret for the G and I go up to the 15th, it's 3 plus 12, 15. You go from up to the 15th fret, that's also an octave. So any place where there's 12 notes in between, that's an octave. All right? We'll go into scales and everything in the next video. I just wanted to make sure you got these fundamentals down prior to moving on to anything else. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I don't know what I'm catching with this, so I'll say good afternoon, good evening, and good night.